Right, made it on. Okay, well, it has been a morning. Had some tech issues this morning, and I don't know if it's due to the rain or what it is, and then it had me running behind trying to get things figured out. And so then I went to go dry my hair, and then my hair dryer is just done. I went to every outlet in the house, just done. So it's like those of you listening on the podcast, you can't see, but my hair is like wet and slicked back. So it is what it is, folks. You just got to roll with it. Okay, so here we go. Today's masterclass. If you joined me last week, that was the Cycle and Fertility Project Masterclass. And that was really helping you understand all that is about our menstrual cycles, how they start, what's really happening on that hormonal level, the 4 phases. And that is it's really the base. That is the building block of understanding what's going on in perimenopause and menopause. And the big problem is that women arrive in perimenopause, no idea what it means, no idea what to expect, not really being supported and educated along the way, really just kind of flowing through it as, I'm a woman, this is what happens, it's out of my control, whatever my mom's perimenopause or menopause was like, or my sisters or my aunts or my grandmothers or whomever, that's just going to be what mine is, and I just need to sit back and enjoy this ride, whether it's a good one or not. Not understanding how long this transition can be, that there are many different things we can be doing to support our bodies in this area of time. It's a long period of time, and we're going to get into that. And then talking about menopause itself. I'm not going to spend a ton of time today talking about postmenopause, because your postmenopausal years you're setting up during perimenopause and menopause. So at some point, maybe I'll do something that's focused on when you are 5+ years way beyond menopause. But if you're one of the women that are tuning in today and you're already there, you're already like, Jen, I've been in menopause, or, I went through menopause X amount of time ago. Just know that every single thing I'm going to teach you and talk to you about today is exactly what you should be applying. And this is really the whole thing, is that we start to break it all down like, okay, I'm supposed to live my way during my pubescent years like this, and then my fertile years like this, and then my post-fertile perimenopausal years like this, and then menopause is supposed to look like this, and then postmenopausal. I'm going to spill the big magic beans here. We need to learn right out of the gates how to live a healthy lifestyle and how to treat our female bodies from the earliest stage possible and continue with those fundamentals the whole way through. Every phase that you go through in your body, not just as a woman, but as a human being. Obviously, today we're going to focus this more around women, because men don't go through perimenopause and menopause. They do go through andropause, which is a male form of their own slowing down and decline of certain hormones and changes in their bodies. I'm not going to get into that. I'm also not ever going to lead a masterclass on men's health and hormones. It's not my niche. It's not what I do. I don't work with men. I have colleagues that do that. It's not my area that I focus on, so I'm not going to put any energy into that. I am focusing my energy and my life's work around you, the female, and so that you can understand that when we set these foundations in terms of lifestyle, nutrition, supplements, movement, sleep, our environment, decreasing our exposure to toxicity, understanding more about the language our own individual body is telling us, that you want to continue on this path moving forward. Now, as you go through different times in your life, when the hormones are hyper, when the thyroid levels are changing, when the adrenals are slightly more taxed, when there's different things happening, whether it's acute stress or chronic stress, you are going to have to adapt. You're going to have to change things, but it should never feel like you have to change everything, or that your changes have to feel like a massive swing. Should feel like a pivot. It should feel like a small shift. And so that's really what my objective is in teaching you about this information today, is that it's going to build upon any of the work you've been hearing me teach about for all of the years on, Instagram, or any of my workshops and online courses, but really building on what you learned last week. Now, if you didn't watch last week, or if you are tuning in on the podcast for this and you didn't listen to last week's episode, I'm going to strongly encourage you that you press pause right now and you go back and you listen to last week so that you can have a more solid understanding. And if you don't, I mean, it's totally up to you. But if you keep pressing play and listening today, there's going to be things I'm going to talk about where you're going to feel like you have more questions. And I can guarantee you that probably those questions would be answered if you went back and listened to the previous masterclass. Now, I'll be offering a 2.0 series of last week's masterclass that is going to be more specific on fertility, since it has released through email and into the groups. And it doesn't even release until June 3rd, I believe, this coming Monday on the podcast. I have 28 unanswered emails in my inbox right now that I'm trying to chip away out of women who are struggling with fertility issues. So they've, understand the concepts now of the cycle syncing, but how do I specifically apply that when I'm trying to get pregnant? So I'm going to be recording another fertility-based one in the next couple of weeks. We are very, very busy right now as a team prepping for Ignite Your Life for the next round of the hormone project. So I'm doing my best as one human being trying to get through all of this. This is the great thing about talking to you on this type of forum is I can have the microphone turned on for many of you as opposed to just trying to do this one-to-one ratio. So let's just do a couple of housekeeping things before we get going. Please make sure you have all your notifications turned off. If you have taken the time to tune in for yourself today, then please truly tune in. Be present in what it is that we are talking about so that you can make sure that you're really going to grab as much as possible from what it is that you're learning. Now, for those of you that are on live, I'm just typing into the sidebar hello to make sure that you can see me, that you can hear me, that the audio is good and clear. You can just give me a thumbs up or like a yes, a hi, whatever it may be. And not everybody has to respond, but just one or two of you. For those of you listening on the podcast, no need to respond. I cannot hear you. Okay, awesome. Very good. All right, so as always, this is being recorded. For those of you who are listening to the actual recording, you will most definitely know that it's being recorded because that's how it is coming to you. Now, what I want to focus on today is we're going to be spending quite a bit of time together. You have a couple of different things that you could do for yourself to set yourself up for big success over the next hour and a bit of time together. The first is you could choose to simply be present and to listen and to take this in and digest it as it's going to come today. You are not going to remember every single thing that we talk about. There's going to be things that have you sit up a little taller, that you retain a bit more than others. And I always just trust that the things that you retain the most today were the key messages that you needed to take away. The beauty of the recording, either in the video format or on the podcast, is you can go back and you can play it again and again with your notebook and your pen and really sit down and take some notes that help you to understand, help you to discern the information. And by discern, I mean how to start to, listen to all of it and then go in and start to kind of excavate, excuse me, and pull out the parts that feel most relevant and most doable for you right now, okay? So this masterclass is called the Perimenopause and Menopause Project. And, menopause or perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, there's stages in our life as a woman that are building over transitionary times, building up towards the full cessation or stopping of our menstrual cycle. This is really the end of a female's reproductive years. Perimenopause is that first stage in the process. This typically can take anywhere from 8 to 10 years happening before actual menopause, which is that full stop of your menstrual cycle for at least one full calendar year actually happens. Now, menopause is the point when a woman no longer has her periods. Postmenopause is the stage after menopause. Okay, so again, it's important to understand the clear distinction between these different phases of your life and your body so that you know what do you need to shift? What do you need to change? What's normal? What's not? What's common that we might think is normal, but is not? When do you need to go to the doctor or to a holistic practitioner, a naturopath, a functional medicine doctor? When do you need to kind of up level where you're at? And how do you know if what you're experiencing is okay? So, the explanation that I just gave you, for a lot of people, can seem like very clear, cut, and dry, but doesn't really teach you or tell you anything in terms of what physical changes can you expect. What, mental, emotional changes could you expect? When I'm using that word discernment, this is like, you have to do some gathering. You have to put yourself in a position where you can do some R&D, some research, and some development about your own body to then know, is this normal for me? Did all of a sudden things start to change? Did little by little I start to recognize that my sleep was getting a little bit worse, that my weight was starting to creep up, the texture of my skin was changing, the quality of my, workouts and my recovery and my performance were starting to shift and change? Do I notice that my cravings are getting worse, that, my, digestion is far more off, that my, poop has slowed down, that whatever it may be, those types of things, is that you have to really understand and you have to pay attention to your body. You've got to go deeper than just the surface. And so let's do that. Let's go deeper together. So, it's in all the research that I've done, in all of the, different levels of learning that I've done, there's typically these ages that we're given as to when things start. And I don't want you to become attached to an age. Like, for instance, if you read most of the literature that is published on perimenopause and menopause, it will say around the age of 40, women's bodies begin perimenopause, right? That transition leading into menopause, the point in time when your body will be preparing to stop menstruation permanently. That to me is, women get it programmed in their head that it's like, oh, once you hit 40, like everything changes. Your weight changes, your energy changes, your sex drive, your cycle, like everything changes at 40. And that is common for a lot of women, but that's not necessarily the norm. And part of me has this question in my mind where I ask, is it true? Like, is that actually true, that we are 39 one day and the next day we wake up and we're 40, and now it's just like a downhill crappy slide towards the rest of our womanhood? I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all. I believe that we get conditioned that, here comes this fateful number 40. And now all of a sudden you're like over the hill and everything that's going to happen is going to be negative. And so I feel that we start to believe that, where there is intention, there is energy. And where there is attention, there is energy. That's how it flows. So if you in your mind are like, oh my gosh, 40's coming, you know what that means. I'm going to start to lean towards menopause. I'm going to get, the midsection spread. I'm going to, not be sleeping. My thyroid becomes an issue. All of these things. Well, I really, truly, firmly believe that if that's the energy you're putting out there, you are going to attract some of that into how you feel, right? It's like, this is the best example that I've heard, and I use it in lots of different ways, is if I were to tell you, I want you to think of any color car except for blue. Don't think about a blue car. Any color car but blue. So every other color that's out there, just not a blue car. Like, what is the first color car you're going to think about? It's going to be blue. Is it because you love a blue car, you want a blue car, you drive one? No. It's because that was the core message that you kept hearing, was blue, blue, blue. If all you're thinking is, oh God, 40, everything's going to get worse. 40, everything is going to change. 40, 40, 40. Guess what happens as 40 comes by, or you turn 40? If this is your mindset, you're going to start to feel the unraveling. So instead of thinking it's going to happen at 40, somewhere in the years, between, truthfully, 35 to 50, this period of time is going to happen in your life. How early it happens and how late it happens really depends on a couple of things. The lifestyle that you're living. So the more stressed out, unhealthy, unbalanced lifestyle that you are living, it's probably going to happen earlier. And if it doesn't happen earlier, when it does happen, it's probably going to feel like somebody just like ripped the rug out from underneath you and everything changed overnight. So it is our bodies responding to the tone or the severity or the style of life that we are living that is really preparing us for this next phase and stage of our life. So that hallmark of perimenopause is a change in the levels of your hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and androgens. That's not age predicated. That is lifestyle. That is also partially your genetics. That is how you are living your lifestyle that is impacting your genetics, which is epigenetics. So for the woman who is taking really good care of herself, and I can say this from a clinical perspective as well as a study perspective. From a clinical perspective, I am working with women that span, 7 decades in my practice. And I have women that are in their late 40s who are still fully menstruating, have wonderfully balanced hormones, still having great sex life, sleeping well, weight is still manageable, all of those things. And I have women that are 35 who have vaginal dryness, zero sex drive, hormone issues, hair is thinning and falling out, menstrual cycle is extremely short or heavy and really long, and they are already starting to lean in towards those perimenopausal stages leading into menopause. We're talking a 10 to 15 year age span, right, in a woman's body. And so if it was only about the age that you are, then all of us would be around the same age within a couple of years that would be going through this. But what I find is if you look at pockets of women, so if you look at, one group of women who spend time together, but all their time is spent with, they're exercising, they're eating healthy, they connect over a walk versus, a glass of wine bitching about life. They have healthy, lifestyles, they have a healthy marriage, they have a great career, they find joy in their life, they travel. Those are the ones that have their cycles longer. You go to the group of women who hate the job that they're in, they feel stifled in every area of their life, they're really lacking joy, they're not eating well, they don't move their body, they're constantly turning to stimulants. Every time they try to do something positive, there's somebody negative in their life that is really trying to kind of kibosh that. Those are the women whose bodies suffer. And so it's a very interesting I don't know if that's like looking at like sociology of that or anthropology of looking at these different groups and how our environments really do impact what's happening. And this is one of those things that from that energetic tone, if you don't believe it, we talked about it in the last masterclass, is how, you can live in a house full of women. Everybody starts their cycle at a different time, but at some point, all of you are going to be cycling around the same time of the month, because that's that female feminine energy that pulls and attracts us towards one another. So if you're finding that you're struggling and you want to kind of come up out of this, like you're tired of treading, you want to get your head above the water and swim away from it, one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, who is the core group of women that I am surrounding myself with, right? Are they motivated? Are they outgoing? Are they also wanting to be healthy? Or are we all just kind of stuck in this cauldron of crap, and just really kind of festering and complaining about the things that aren't making us happy, but then not shifting that at all? Your hormones are listening. Your body is listening, right? You have to remember your hormones, they are chemicals. They're chemical messengers. And when we're talking about chemistry, this from the perspective, if you think of like a lab, it's add a little of this, a little of that, take a little bit away, agitate the environment a little bit, balance the environment a little bit, and you're going to get completely different reactions and responses. Well, these reactions and responses in our female bodies, our chemistry lab, these are going to come on as symptoms or no symptoms, right? So it's going to be ease or having, a difficult time. And so as we're transitioning into perimenopause, which I see on average, like I said, is about an 8 to 10, sometimes 12-year period of time, where the 3 main sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and your androgen hormones, and so like testosterone, DHEA, are really starting to fluctuate. And so, this is not solely a physical event when we're going through this. Yes, we think it is because we're seeing the things like a shorter menstrual cycle, our PMS might be increasing, the vaginal dryness, those types of things, hot flashes, insomnia. But there is a lot of mental, emotional things that are happening around this time of our life as well that will have a big toll on how well our body goes through these transitionary years. Now, I'm 39 years old. I'm going to be 40 in September. And if I were to ask myself and think about the last decade of my life, or even the last 5 years of my life, right, from 34 until now, which if you look at the literature, they say around age 35, most women are going to be starting their perimenopausal decade in front of them. And remember, perimenopause and menopause, this is like our young bodies preparing for puberty, going through puberty. Puberty in totality is, again, about an 8 to 10 year span of full maturation in our bodies before we are through it. And perimenopause and menopause is puberty in reverse, okay? And so if there are different things, like if I look back and think, these are times of your life when you're raising a family, you own a home, you're building your career, you're making career changes, there's lots of different variables. You're maybe dealing with illness for the first time in your family, whether it's your immediate family or a loved one. You're dealing with possible loss. You're helping friends through, I know at my age, between the ages of 34 and 39, it wasn't as many weddings that we were going to. It was, sometimes the ending of marriages. It was big changes in people's lives of, moving, of, like I said, career. A lot of our friends started having families later in life, and our children are almost into their teen years now. And so if I look back at these last 5 years, big years of building business for me, big years of breaking down barriers, big years in our relationship, big years financially. There's a lot of different things that have pulled on my body, that my internal body, my organs, my hormones, all the different systems have had to respond to. And I know if I was not taking care of myself in proper nourishment and prioritizing my sleep and exercising appropriately, that things would have started to break down. And I went through those breakdown years. I had periods of time where I was doing way too much, and I was putting the wrong things at the top of the list. Too intensive exercise, being too strict with what I was eating, staying up too late at night, working way too much, not finding enough time and space for quiet time and joy and just like mindfulness and, listening versus so much talking. And my thyroid was starting to suffer. It was going hyperactive. My adrenal function was starting to suffer. My menstrual cycle was shortening. I was having all of these signs and symptoms that if I had continued on that path, I definitely would have been in a perimenopausal state right now, where I would have been feeling a lot of signs and symptoms and been having a lot of the typical issues that so many women in my practice are dealing with. But I started to recognize them because I'm educated. And this is my wish for you, is to get you educated enough that you too can start to feel and recognize when your body is changing and it doesn't feel comfortable anymore. And then you can press pause and you can actually start to sit back and ask yourself some of those key questions, like, what is going on? What has changed? Or maybe sometimes the question is, what hasn't changed? What am I still doing that I freaking hate, that is sucking the life out of me, that is just not working, and yet I'm continuing to show up to it. Okay, so this is not solely a physical event. And if you hand all of your power over to the physical part of perimenopause and menopause, you're doing yourself a disservice. We're going to talk about this more so towards the end when I get into the lifestyle things about how this can really impact how our bodies will respond. But first, let's start off with talking about that there are actually 3 different phases, or 3 different types, I should say rather, of how menopause can come on in our bodies. Because when I'm talking about this 8 to 10 year period of time, if you're a woman that has had any type of medical or drug intervention, if you had a oophorectomy, a partial or a radical hysterectomy, suffered from endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, HPA, which is hypothalamic pituitary adrenal disorder, or any dramatic issues with your thyroid, this can happen in a different way for you. So there's really kind of classified 3 different types of menopause. The first one being artificial menopause. This is the type of menopause that my mom went through. My mom had a radical hysterectomy, and literally the moment that they take those, your uterus, your fallopian tubes, and your ovaries out, you are in menopause. So you want to talk about having that rug taken out from underneath you. Your body is just like bulldozed. And if your system wasn't set up appropriately or in a healthy way to manage that, which I'm going to assume in most women's bodies who've had to have a radical hysterectomy, you weren't in a balanced state. Things were getting out of control, and they were probably going on for, years, a decade or longer before it got to the point of having to have a hysterectomy, that your body is going to really suffer in those first few years after the procedure. And maybe even beyond that if you don't get the support that you deserve. So if you look again at the studies, about 25%, so 1 in 4 women experience artificial menopause. And that's resulting, like I said, from the removal of whether it is the ovaries, sometimes as well too, like tubal ligation. I've seen some issues in some women where they said, I was fine, I had my tubes tied, and now things have changed after. Also, I work with a lot of women who are cancer survivors who had a lot of chemotherapy and radiation, or were taking certain drugs, and that may have impacted, not just their health as a whole, but also impacted the blood supply to the ovaries. There's also damage that happens with those types of treatments. So that's obviously going to be a little bit of a different situation. But for these women who have had the oophorectomy or had the partial or the full hysterectomy, their menopausal symptoms are typically going to be much more severe and debilitating because there's no opportunity for this gradual adjustment to the hormonal drop-off. See, when we're going through perimenopause, I know it sounds like, oh my God, that's such a long period of time, but be happy that it's almost over the course of a decade so that your body can start to do this undulation where the levels are gradually starting to decline. Estradiol is starting to lower down. Progesterone is lowering down, testosterone is lowering down, and it's not like everything is gone all at once. And we'll talk a little bit more as we go deeper about the fact that when your ovaries naturally start to decline their production of estradiol, which converts to estriol and estrone, of progesterone and of testosterone, some of it is going to be made from our fat cells after. Our liver health is going to have a big impact on how well we do after this, your gut health, and your adrenal health. Your adrenals really truly become like those secondary ovaries post-menopausal years to help to produce some of those hormones that your body really truly does still require. And so, for women who get hysterectomies, typically they have it and then automatically they're put on a synthetic hormone replacement therapy, most of the time, which is, horse marron base, which is from pregnant horse. It's their pregnant horse urine. It's Premarin. Sometimes if you're lucky enough, you'll be put onto bioidentical hormones, which those are done through a compounding pharmacy and a functional practitioner who is testing and measuring your hormone levels appropriately and then is creating a specific dosing, whether it's oral or it is suppository, or like sometimes it's vaginally being suppositoried into your body or on your skin, right? Topical estrogen and progesterone. So, there's a couple of different factors. Unfortunately, when you're going through your OBG or your medical doctor, very rarely, if ever, are they going to talk about bioidentical hormones. It's typically going to be just the, pharmaceutical grade hormone replacement therapy where there's a few different options in terms of how much the dosing is going to be, and then it's trial and error. Now, I am not doing a consultation with any of you right now. I do not know your health history. But what I would say is in my experience, I'm going to tell you, I don't recommend having a hysterectomy and then going straight into hormone replacement therapy. You need to have a period of time leading into when you're waiting for surgery. If that's what you have decided to do, where we are starting to prime your body, then having the procedure and then having a protocol to take you through the next 6 to 12 months post-surgery to help to really rebuild a base and a foundation in your system. And then there can be that discussion about what are other areas of support that we need. So you'd want to be measuring your blood after, and I would do it a couple of times over the 12 months. I would wait about 3 months, see where your levels are at. So I would get it done right before, about 3 months after. You could do it right before, right after, 3 months after, and then I would do it like once a season for that first calendar year, and I would be doing the Dutch urinary testing as well too. The blood is only going to show those serum levels that's in your body at the time. The urinary testing is going to show also your metabolites, how your body is breaking these hormones down, what is getting out, what is staying in and recirculating. So I think that that's really, really important before you just jump the gun, or your physician does, and you go straight into the hormone replacement therapy. Now, premature menopause is not the same as artificial menopause. I've had a lot of women come into my practice with premature ovarian failure at a young age. This is typically when women are going through premature menopause. It's usually diagnosed when they're happening, or this is happening between the ages of 30 and 40. This is almost always one of two situations, either due to a severe amount of stress, like this would be trauma, okay? Something devastating that happens that just really knocks your body offside and, really decreases your resiliency, and your body just does not recover from it on that hormonal level. The other thing that I see is that this typically happens secondary to autoimmune disease. So there was an autoimmune condition in the body. In a lot of women, more commonly, we're looking at things that's happened from an autoimmune perspective with the adrenals and with the thyroid. So Hashimoto's or Addison's disease or Cushing's disease. I'm unfortunately seeing those two issues rise a little bit, which previously you'd see in such a small population. And I think the fact that we're just being dismissed now as women with our health issues, we're not being guided. So we're not really paying attention. We're just suppressing with medication. We're shoving it under the rug, and our bodies are really just starting to break down. And so premature menopause, when there's different autoimmune conditions happening, nutritional deficiencies as well too. So we are a society right now that is overfed but starving. So you are getting all the calories, you're getting all the flavor in, you're getting, all of that, dopamine, oxytocin, like drug response from what you're eating, but your body is starving for nutrients. Our food is devoid of vitamins, of minerals, of antioxidants, of phytonutrition, of all the goodness, the fiber, just everything that we need in order to actually function. Like every single thing that you see and feel and touch that vibrates within you are coming from your cells. It is coming from within your cells. It is coming from within your mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of not only your ATP, which is your energy production, but the quality of everything. Your cell health and your nervous system health are literally the most important elements that are going to show up in all other 10 systems in your body and your health as a whole. And if you are not eating real food, if you are eating genetically modified food, chemical, pesticide, herbicide, Roundup, glyphosate, sprayed food. If you are eating from animals who are eating this garbage and these toxins, your body is taking that on. This is not something we can take lightly anymore and look at it and say, oh, it's too expensive. I'm going to call you out on this bull fucking shit. And I'm going to say it with love and respect, but I'm telling you, when you want the new patio furniture for the backyard, you find a way to pay for it. When you want to go out for dinner, you find a way to pay for it. When you want the new pants, the new purse, when your child wants to sign up for another sport, needs a new bike, wants a new shirt, whatever it is, you figure out a way to pay for it. We are looking at this and we're not prioritizing it, which is why the next words that come out of our mouth is it's too expensive, I'm not paying that. When you actually go around the store, and I have done this both as a social experiment and as an experiment with my clients, and I talk about this in all of my programs, when you actually go in and add up the cost difference of the bag of organic apples, the bunch of organic bananas, the organic peppers, the organic cucumber, you are probably spending less in a grocery bill than you are spending at the Starbucks drive-thru, at your pizza once a week, at your big dinner out. It is a change of mindset up top, and it is really asking you, are you serious about getting healthy? Are you serious about it? Because all the women who show up in my practice at this stage of life who are piling on the pounds, and I look at what they're eating, I'm like, you do realize that your cellulite and your weight is going to continue to grow exponentially as your hormones grow out of balance because you are full of obesogens. You are full of toxic chemicals. That is now what scientists are referring to, all of these toxins coming into our body. For many years, they're xenoestrogens, right? They're foreign particles. They're messing up with our endocrine system. They're disrupting. There's cell mimicry that's happening. But these are obesogens. These are literally going in and changing the cell communication and structure, and they are allowing your body and creating a more hospitable environment to pack the pounds on, to hold on to more of this toxicity in your system, which is why you're seeing the cellulite get worse, which is why you're feeling puffy and thick and like you need to, poke yourself with a pin for the inflammation to go down, which is why your skin is changing, your hair is graying faster, your joints are hurting because you're full of toxins. And going out and doing a diet, going out and buying foods that are labeled gluten-free, but it's still a cookie, or paleo, or keto, or vegan, or whatever the label is, the hashtag that's on it, you need to look at the ingredients. Does it contain real food? If the answer is no, put it down, walk away, and get real food into your body. We're going to go deeper as I go into it, but I just had to go there. I don't think I breathed that whole time. I get lit up about it because we have the needle pointed in the wrong direction. We are so quick and easy to come up with all the reasons as to why it's not possible for us and why it's not accessible, and why, like people say to me, you just don't get it. Really? Go back and listen to the podcast where I talked about the situation we were in our finance suffer and the choices we made and the things we got rid of so that our health didn't have to be compromised. So I get it when you're talking about the cost of things. I think what you don't get is the cost of your health in exchange for what you're choosing to ring your Visa through or your debit card. That's what I'm saying. Again, wrapping it in love, but then with a swift little kick to your behind, but with love. Okay. So the other thing with premature menopause is that not only does it happen earlier, but it typically comes on faster because, again, our body is not meant to, at that young of an age, have these things happening. There's supposed to be this gradual decline, not this like sudden kind of fall off the ledge. And so then there's natural menopause, which is what most women are typically going to go through. And this happens gradually. Natural menopause, I find, happens later. This is that group of women I was talking about in their later 40s, so 45 to 55. And typically she has at least one ovary left, if not both of them. And she'll start to notice changes in her menstrual cycle and her mood before the actual final period has happened. Sleep might change a little bit. Weight might be, it might be 5 to 10 pounds that she sees come on, but it's not going to be 15, 20 and beyond. The transition of that natural perimenopause period of time is going to be at that period about anywhere from, 5 to 10 years. And through the entire process, again, it's this gradual kind of like crescendo in the beginning and then a peak and then gradual decline off. So with our hormones, what you might find, again, in response to your lifestyle, it's not that they just start to drop and they continue to go. Typically, progesterone will start to drop and it will continue to go down, which is why you'll see that luteal phase, the phase after ovulation before your period starts, will tend to get shorter. If there's spotting in that period of time leading into your period, it probably means you're no longer ovulating at that point, which is why you have that spotting that's happening. And then during the perimenopausal years, oftentimes periods can disappear for months on end, and then they can come back. I have women who are like, it's been 11 months, one more month and I'm, officially in menopause. And then they message and they're like, are you kidding me? I just got a period. And then that whole calendar year starts again. So try not to get frustrated by it. Just know that is normal. That is something that's normal, is having it go for a little bit and then come back when you're in the perimenopausal years. If you're not in those years, you're younger, or you're on something like an IUD, or you're on the birth control and you're having those types of issues that I was talking about happening, that's not normal. And if you are in towards your 40s and 50s and beyond, you should not be using an IUD contraceptive or the birth control pill, because this increases the risk of health issues, including things like cancer, and fibroids and those types of things, the longer that you stay on those. Now, if it's a copper IUD, the risk decreases, but there's more risk associated with the thyroid, right? With copper displacement and iodine displacement, and still leaching some of those minerals like magnesium and the B vitamins and selenium and zinc that our bodies need for optimal hormone function. And your thyroid, like I said, can become a big target. Okay, now there's the physical part of what's happening in those hormones, but your brain is undergoing a massive period of change during these perimenopausal years. This is where oftentimes women will say, like, my memory is declining. I can't multitask the same way that I used to, or I don't have the patience I used to. A lot of women will say to me, like, my BS radar is just so sharp now. I can't not say what I'm thinking. I just can't put up with the same level of stuff anymore. I think that's actually quite powerful when you can do it in a tactful way. I think that, I look at perimenopause and menopause as a really powerful and beautiful period of time in life when it can be one that is felt in balance and in alignment. And what I mean by that is that if you're suffering all the time, you're not getting sleep, you have raging hot flashes, you're piling on the pounds, there's nothing magical and joyous about that. But if it can be one where you're like, you know what, like I'm done. I'm done putting everyone else above myself. I'm done being complacent. I'm done just doing the thing that is expected of me versus the thing that I want to be doing. These things matter so much when we're going through these transitionary periods of time. It's why when our girls are going through puberty and they're getting into their teens, they become way more assertive. They become way more sassy. They're a little bit lippier. They're stubborn. They stand up for themselves. You want to, like, honest to goodness, smack them when they do that in your face, because you're like, are you freaking kidding me? But the undertone of that is I'm doing a small fist pump because I'm like, yes, girl, stand on your own 2 feet, assert yourself. Like, you speak your mind, you know, speak your truth. You don't back down. Just don't do it to your mom. That's what I'm thinking in those moments. And it's the same thing for us when we go on the other side of it into menopause, is we're back in that seat of power. We are back in that, like, not going to happen to me, not on my dime. This is my time. I'm going to choose. For most women, when they're going in this phase of life, you have raised your family. Your children are a bit older. They're more self-sufficient. They are creating and forging their own path and their own journey. And this is where you feel like, I've got the time back for me now. Now, what happens oftentimes is, oh my God, I've got the time back for me. Who is me? Who am I? Who am I if I'm not mom? Who am I if I'm not the caretaker and the caregiver of everybody around me? When was the last time I asked myself, what makes me happy? What do I want to do? It is a paralyzing question for the women I work with. What makes you happy? What brings you joy? What do you want to do? Like, they don't know, because no one has asked them that question for probably the last 15 or 20 years, because life hasn't been about them. It's been about their family, their career, getting it all done, keeping up with everybody else, and they've really been forgotten about. And that can have a huge toll on where we're at and how we're feeling mentally and emotionally, our body. And so in order to have the best transition possible, it is so important that you are treating your whole body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, that voice that whispers every day, I don't want to do this. I don't enjoy this. I don't love this. This doesn't feel good. That voice needs to vibrate and get louder and stronger. And ladies who are younger listening to this, don't wait. Don't wait. Again, you can do it in a tactful way. You don't have to, like, walk around like a queen in a rude way of, this demanding type of energy. It's just like, assert yourself, but do it with such clarity. Understand why you're doing it. Like, where is it coming from? And this takes time of, like, doing the work. And here's the thing, is the shortcut to good, healthy hormones, to healthy weight, to all of the things that you want on the other side of where you are right now, is working through where you are right now. The shortcut is the work. And there's no shortcut around that. Okay. All right. So let's go into some of the typical symptoms of your perimenopause. How are we doing for time here? Whew, we are doing awesome. So because we started at 9:30 this morning, we're going to go to no later than 11 o'clock. So this is definitely where you want to take out your pen and paper if you are taking notes, or maybe you do it on your next round of listening. So some of these symptoms of low progesterone, which is going to happen, this is really the first hormone that's going to start to plummet when we are going into perimenopause, is first of all, it's looking at the ratio of how much progesterone you have to estrogen. So you can look at blood work, you can look at salivary work. My preferred is the Dutch dried urinary test for comprehensive hormones, because it's looking at the entire gamut, not of just your sex hormones, but it's looking at organic acids, it's looking at your neurotransmitters, it's looking at the adrenal health. And it helps us to really stand above it, take that aerial view, and then, get down deeper into each zone and really understand what's happening individually in those areas. But then again, stepping back and looking at the full spectrum picture, talking to you as the individual. So again, you can't just look at the testing and come up with it as like a diagnostic. You have to have a conversation with the human and then start to piece together the things you're saying, you're feeling and experiencing with what we're actually seeing in your own chemistry results. That's how you create your best strategy and protocol and new lifestyle way of living moving forward. Okay, it's not by following a cookie cutter approach. So some of those symptoms in the beginning are going to be breast swelling and tenderness, mood swings, fuzzy thinking. So that like cloudy, just feeling like there's always this fog that doesn't lift. You're going to be pretty irritable. Sleep will probably be impacted. A lot of water retention can happen when there is those symptoms of low progesterone. PMS is going to be a big one. That's where the breast tenderness comes in from, right? And the bloating leading into your cycle, you know, acne breakouts, those types of things is typically if progesterone is sitting too low, estrogen is a bit too high in ratio, maybe even testosterone or your DHA is a bit elevated, that jawline hormonal or cystic acne is just going to work itself through. You know, you'll find oftentimes that with that lower progesterone, shorter cycle. So this is something in my body that I have found over the years is that pre-children, so my kids are almost 11 and 13. Pre-children, I had like a 28 to 30 day cycle. After my first child, I was a 28 to 29 day. After my second child, it was a 27 to 28 day. And then over the last decade, my cycle now hovers somewhere between a 24 and a 26 day. And I've maintained that rhythm for the last 4 solid years. So it's just understanding, again, what's the pattern for your body. This is why cycle syncing and tracking your cycle information is such important data, because this is really helping you lay that groundwork for you knowing what's the norm for me. What is the norm for me? It is powerful information to have. So shorter cycles can be common. We still want to have that minimum of 10 to 14 days between the time that you're ovulating and when your actual bleed begins. If it's shorter than 10 days, that's then when we want to start to look into some things to actually help to bring that progesterone up. If you get 2 cycles each month, so instead of ovulating, you get a second period around that time as well, we want to make sure. And then I had talked about if you're spotting during that luteal phase. So say you weren't supposed to get your period for 3 to 5 days, but you spot 1 or 2 days lightly and then it stops and then you get your full period. Those spotting days are not your period. Those spotting days are an indication of having insufficient progesterone. And that's what we work on balancing so that you can just, when you start your period, it starts with bright flow and that's your cycle. Now, some symptoms of low testosterone, which is going to be another hormone that's going to start to decrease. And this, I find that testosterone in most women's testing starts to do a decline far before their estrogen does and far before their actual period stops. And so some of those symptoms that they might be feeling will be loss of sex drive. So this is where you are still attracted to your partner, you love them, you can have like ideas of wanting to be intimate and to have sex and to do, you know, whatever it may be. But when it comes to the time, it's like, oh my gosh, my body's not responding. So it's a decreased sexual response. Can also be decreased sensitivity in those different erogenous zones, as well as lack of lubrication. So lowered estrogen can also contribute to this. And there's lots of things you can do. So number one is use a lubricant. Like never be ashamed or feel embarrassed about using a lubricant. Like I recommend this to every single woman in my practice that I talk to. A lubricant is going to make things better all the time, not just when those hormones start to decrease. So you could use something oil-based like sea buckthorn and jojoba or fantastic. Coconut oil, if your body does okay with coconut oil. There's also different companies like St. Francis Herb Farm actually has a woman's formulated cream for the vaginal area that you can use as well too. The other thing you'll notice with the decrease in testosterone is depression will increase. Lack of mojo, like motivation, get up and go. Your activity performance, your recovery, loss or thinning of hair on the head as well as the pubic area. You might notice that your underarm hair and your leg hair growth starts to slow down. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but those are some of those symptoms. And then the symptoms of low estrogen. This is typically the last hormone to decline. It is the hormone that we're most abundant in because estrogen as women, this is what gave you your hips, gave you your curves, gave you your breast tissue, gives you your like, you know, va-va-va-voom, and gives you all of that, you know, feminine energy that you really want to put out there. I mean, our estrogen is high in the first part of our cycle because we want to attract a mate in around that time of ovulation, which we talked about in your cycle and fertility project class last week. So the estrogen is abundant. Plus, we have some unhealthy estrogens that are abundant because of our environment, toxicities, our body's not properly metabolizing, breaking down, and then eliminating, right? So remember, we talked last week, if you have elimination problems, if you have a stagnant liver, if you aren't supporting your system, if you don't methylate, if you're not pooping, if you don't sweat, this is a big issue where you could be technically going through menopause, but still be suffering from estrogen dominance. Because remember, estrogen dominance is what it means is there is excess estrogen. There's more estrogen in relation to progesterone and testosterone, or one or the other. And so while your ovaries continue to slow down their production of estrogen, they'll continue to make a little bit for the rest of your life. And your body's going to have other areas that are going to be, helping out as well too. Like I talked about, your fat cells will produce estrogen, your adrenals will help as well too. And as a woman, keeping your gut healthy and keeping your liver supported are two really important levers you need to make sure that you are keeping in balance to help to make sure that we are breaking down the continued sources of estrogen that we're exposed to on a toxic environmental level, as well as what's happening inside your body in any given moment, okay? Now, symptoms of the estrogen decline. This is where the hot flashes come from, the night sweats, the really bad vaginal dryness, the decreased energy and motivation, the depression, anxiety, heart palpitations, and mood swings. Now, for women that have the heart palpitations, the mood swings, depression, everything I just, named above, there's not a woman coming into my practice who has these symptoms where I'm not doing a full thyroid panel, because I can almost always guarantee you that something is going on in the thyroid gland itself. So free T4, free T3, reverse T3, their antibodies will have checked, and then the signaling from the brain to the gland itself, which is that TSH. So a full thyroid panel, I highly recommend. Also can be things like the dizziness. Well, this is the adrenal and blood sugar part of it as well too. So the adrenals are governed by the kidneys. The kidneys are also massively intact from an energetic perspective of what's going on with our ovaries. When blood pressure is impacted, when blood sugar is low, you are going to feel those signs and symptoms, the dizziness, the headaches, those types of things that are going on. Yes, Charlie's barking a lot. There's someone at the door that we're going to ignore. Mental confusion. So this again is that brain fog, urinary incontinence. Now this can be happening with the decline of estrogen, but this is also can be a period of time where if you don't, exercise, if you don't move your body, if you've never visited a pelvic floor physiotherapist, if you don't get chiropractically adjusted, you don't visit an osteopath, you have no hands-on body work happening. You ever had diastasis recti when you were pregnant or beyond, and that was never treated, it was never properly diagnosed, those things are going to start to show up, and that can come in as urinary incontinence, increased urinary tract infections, bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections, all of those different issues can be happening as a result. So, this is a really important thing that you want to be able to pay attention to and make sure that you are doing your due diligence. This is why having a holistic health team is so important, because you need to have the accessibility to the information. Then you need to have the accessibility to the people who can help you understand what's going on specifically in your body, and then create a protocol to help to get you on the other side of it. So, like I said, in this period of time, while your ovaries are decreasing their production of estrogen, those adrenals are supposed to kick in and help you. Your fat cells will also continue to produce some estrogen, which is why women who are suffering from terrible excessive estrogen, when their bodies should be doing the opposite, oftentimes have way worse symptoms. That's when the weight gain is going to pile on. Their breast tenderness is really bad. Their moods are all over the place. And if you look back at your timeline health history, years of an unhealthy diet, years of too much alcohol, years of too much coffee, and processed, toxic-filled coffee, AKA Tim freaking Hortons, drugs, medications, lack of sleep, no movement for your body, your lymph system not being stimulated, and a lack of joy, any gut issues that you've had or inflammation going on in your system, this has made it difficult for your body to be able to metabolize, to be able to break down these estrogens, move them along the right path, and get them out of your body. So if we're not sweating, if we're not moving, if we're not sleeping and stimulating our lymph and our lymphatic system appropriately, if we're not eating enough healthy food and getting the fiber in, if we're not pooping, if we're not doing these things to set ourselves up for success, we're not drinking enough water, the easiest step that you could take for yourself, you're not taking foundational nutrients for your body, all of these toxicities are going to stay in your body, they're going to recirculate, and they're unbound at the point where they have been broken down, but now they're trying to get methylated and then move fully out of your body via your poop, your urine, your sweat, whatever it may be. And it's not happening. They're now unbound, unneutralized. They're like the rebel. They're the badass we talked about last week in class that starts to move around and recirculate and move back up into your body and create more issues. And this is oftentimes the problems that's happening for women with cyst, fibroids, endometriosis, and with cancer, is that they have a toxic amount of estrogen that is moving down an unhealthy pathway, either that 16 or that 4-OH pathway. They're not methylating, which means that they are nutrient deficient. There's possibly some genetic issues going on with their COMT gene or the MTHFR SNP, and they are not properly neutralizing, packing up those toxins, and then pooping and getting it out of their system. So the beginning tier of health is like, get your gut on track. Don't try to do anything else. Like, your goal right now should not be weight loss. It should be improve my digestive health, decrease my inflammation, and get me pooing 1 to 3 times every single day, and not pooping mud, not wiping 6 times, pooping really good quality poops every single day. This right here will improve your skin tone, will decrease your inflammation, will help with your headaches, your joint pain, your cravings, so many things. So step number 1 is get your gut in check. To get out of your rut, you've got to start with your gut. Now, I had talked about the fact that I really believe that menopause is like a gift. I look at all transitional periods of our bodies, honestly, as being a gift. And I do so because I am looking at more than just the physical part of what's happening to our body. If that is all that you focus on is the physical, you're probably going to be depressed. Look at what it means as a whole. Look at when you're at these ages and stages of your life, what it means in terms of what you've created, what you can create. You know, the menopausal transition is actually like a profound development stage in which it's like unfinished business from the past comes up again for resolution and healing, so that we can finally free ourselves. We can get outside of these, self-limiting beliefs and patterns and old stories that we now know just simply aren't true from the past. And we can, get rid of it, whether it's relationship stuff, our body image, speaking our voice, of fear of aging, self-esteem issues. You get to a certain age as a woman where little by little, those things they don't matter anymore. And I think that when you're at these ages and stages and you're starting to see people around you pass away, come down with illnesses, it is a swift kick up the side of the head to say, what really matters? What really matters? Are you going to be lying on your deathbed one day and being like, man, life would have been so much better if I had just shed those last 25 pounds. Life would have been so much better if, I didn't have the gray hair. No, that is not what you're going to be thinking about at all. It'll be your moments and your experiences and your time well spent and the things that brought you the most joy. Don't waste your energy and your time, especially through these years of life. It's like, I remember growing up, the commercials on TV were always Freedom 55. And that was like every parent's goal of my generation that grew up. I, was born in 79. So I was growing up in the 80s and in the early 90s. And it was Freedom 55 commercials to be, retired by 55 and living the lifestyle you want. It was working towards putting $1 million away in the bank through your mutual funds and your RRSPs. That is not a reality for anybody nowadays. When was the last time you saw a Freedom 55 commercial? Every commercial now for that demographic and age group is like a CPOD commercial. It is a arthritis commercial, a cancer drug commercial, a heart failure drug commercial, a blood thinner commercial. It is absolutely insane. We went from living at a time where there was this possibility of working the first half of your life to enjoy the second half of your life. And now we live in a time where it's like, Can we all just manage? Can we all just micromanage the shit out of our schedule, out of our bodies? Can we tax ourselves? Can we just, burn the candle at both ends? Can we teach our children to do the same thing and be in nonstop motion and be, connected into an over busy calendar and schedule, to technology, to be disconnected from everybody else, to believe that you're going to have to work your ass off to afford a home, to ever have the life that you want to design? You'll have to go into debt in order to create it. And now you've got to work until you're 70, 75, and 80 years old in order to actually be able to just maintain living. Like, really? This is the best that we have now? And I'm talking about the messages I'm seeing in North America. So yes, I'm Canadian, but every channel that is coming onto the television that is showing you these commercials, these are US-based channels for the most part. These are all the same companies we're talking about in North America. All the pharmaceutical companies that are making a sweet dime off of your, disease, off your illnesses. GSK, right? GlaxoSmithKline, Merck and Frost, Pfizer, Bayer. Like, you just have to look into what's happening in our world right now and recognize that if you don't choose today to sit up taller and to take charge of your health, ladies, someone else is going to, and it's not going to be from a natural perspective. Right? So it is time to stand up into the power that you have and start to create these changes, right? Like, menopause itself is normal. Menopause is supposed to happen. This is a normal transition. So menopause is not what causes health problems. The menopausal transition is marked with increased risk of different things like heart disease, depression, memory loss, Alzheimer's, dementia, breast cancer, osteoporosis, because of the lifestyles that we are living. There is a ton of different things that we can be doing to address and relieve a lot of these symptoms and these issues that are arising without having to walk down that path. So how do we start some of these things? How can we nourish our body nutritionally, right? So what we've learned so far is a lot, but what we learned from that hormonal perspective is that when we're going through the perimenopausal phase, those three hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, are starting to drop. DHA is also going to be dropping with it, which is coming from your adrenals. There are different foods. There's not magical foods. If you follow me on Instagram, I did a big post about this morning. There's not magical food. There's just real food, good food, and non-food. We want to focus on the real good food. So for us ladies, you want to load up on your vegetables. Look at your plates. Do you see a colorful plate beneath you? Greens and reds and purples and oranges, and a variety of them. So in the early stages of perimenopause, when your progesterone is dropping faster than estrogen, this is what can lead to that estrogen dominance that we were talking about. So it's really important that to help to get this excess estrogen continually moving through and out of our body, you have enough fibrous foods that are rich in certain nutrients like sulforaphane from broccoli and broccoli sprouts, indole 3-carbinol, which is coming from your cruciferous vegetables, that are going to help to metabolize your estrogen properly and that are going to help your body be able to also support detoxification in the liver and shifting these dirty estrogens into clean estrogens to help to get them out of your system. Now, how can we start to do that? The easiest way to increase your vegetables is decrease your processed carbohydrates. Decrease how much pasta and flour and rice and grains that you are having. And I'm not saying don't eat any. I just said decrease. Don't make them the staple. Instead, fill more of the plate with your vegetables. If you want to have something like rice, make cauliflower rice. That's one of my most favorite things to do. Super easy. It is healthier than white rice and brown rice. It has more fiber and it has fewer higher glycemic carbohydrates that might impact that blood sugar if that's what you're trying to stabilize. Get protein-rich foods at every single meal, most specifically breakfast. Okay, so blood sugar issues increase during perimenopause, which is going to worsen your mood swings, increase your irritability, stress your adrenals. It is going to make stabilizing your body weight very challenging if your blood sugar is out of balance. So make sure you're getting protein at every single meal. Make sure that you're getting fat and fiber with that protein at every single meal. Our muscle mass and our bone density as women, as we age, like they take a hit as we are leading into menopause. menopause. So that's why, you know, when you're looking at what you're choosing food-wise, if you're leaning more towards stimulants and sugary-based foods, that is going to really impact the appearance of your body and the feel and your performance. You're going to feel like you're getting flabbier as opposed to stronger. And no, it's not all based on appearance, but can I just say this? Like, ladies, it is okay to want to look a certain way. Never feel shame by that. You want to feel stronger. You want to look sexy. You want to feel and look fit for yourself. You define those terms and you can put the work in to create that. I'll never apologize for wanting to look a certain way. That's my business, okay? That doesn't impact anybody else. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad about that unless you're going about it in a really unhealthy way that is actually impacting your health in a really unhealthy way. So we want to do load-bearing resistance training, walking, yoga, Pilates, strength training. Perimenopause and menopause is not the period of time where you are 5 days a week cranking out a boot camp and high intensity and just going full tilt. It is going to work against you. It's going to become more pro-inflammatory. So put your hands on the barbell, put your hands on the dumbbells, but don't be going out for like long endurance runs, you know, just like all of those things. Like if you're going to hit up a spin class or something more intense, do it a couple of times a week, but don't make it the thing you're doing every single day. Cross training and cycling your training is going to be wonderful at this period of time. In terms of your protein-rich foods, because I get asked all the time, you know, what are your best sources to look at? Remember that if you're doing animal products, which can be good, right? Getting like wild, pasture-raised, organic eggs, getting wild caught fish, lean poultry, grass-fed meats, but making sure that what those animals are being fed is congruent with what you want to feed your body, okay? I would say aim for about 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal throughout the day. So typically I encourage women to have 3 to 4 meals throughout the day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and oftentimes I'm going to put a snack in mid-afternoon because that's their biggest gap. Like it's typically a 6 to 7 hour span as to going between lunch and dinner. So I'd typically like a snack in around 3 or 4 p.m. in there. Skip the pastry, skip the cereal in the morning. If you're going to have oatmeal, add in nuts and flax and chia in there. Which leads me to my next tip: incorporate flaxseed into your routine. Flax is one of the most supportive superfoods throughout perimenopause. You know, I recommend it because it is higher in fiber. It is a weaker plant-based phytoestrogen, and it actually helps to support estrogen when it is starting to decrease. And it can also work adaptively and block excess estrogen if excess, like estrogen dominance is there in those earlier stages. Now, if you were to find that it worsened your moods, your periods got worse, your breast tenderness, whatever it may be, which I've actually never had happen in any of my female clients, but if you did, then you would discontinue use. I love to get my menopausal woman doing about 2 tablespoons up to a 1/4 cup of organic, fresh ground flax that is stored in the fridge or the freezer every day in a smoothie. It's going to add bulk to your stool. It's going to help to get out a lot of that toxicity, and then focusing on the foods that are going to support your bone health. This is not coming from dairy, ladies, okay? Not coming from dairy. Choose non-dairy sources of milk: coconut, cashew, walnut, Brazil nut, almond milk, those types of things. Focus on your greens: broccoli, bok choy, collard greens, kale, almonds, sardines, wild canned salmon. Those types of things are going to yield you so much more from a calcium and mineral perspective than drinking cow's milk. Make sure you're getting enough vitamin D. Vitamin D is helping your body absorb and uptake the calcium. And so I would recommend that you're eating a wide variety of food, but you also supplement with an emulsified D, because D is a fat-soluble vitamin. Now, I can't tell you therapeutically how much to take, but what I would say is that it's more than what is on the bottle. And so work with your practitioner to know a safe upper limit of what to be taking, okay? 2 other nutrients that I would say are really overlooked for our bone health. Everyone is so hyper-focused on calcium, but magnesium. Magnesium is involved in over 800 different interactions in your body every single day, and vitamin K2. So it's so important that, you know, again, you're getting these things in through your food, but you're also looking at how to supplement appropriately. Magnesium for me, I typically work with 2 different sources right now, although I am starting to do some work with some threonate as well. But citrate for those who aren't pooping, which is the natural calm powder, before bed, 1 to 2 teaspoons. And then magnesium bisglycinate for those who have great poops, and it's easy to absorb and uptake. Also your omega-3s, so your omega-3 foods. So again, your wild caught fish, wide variety of plant-based foods as well too, algae as well, nuts and seeds, avocados, coconut oil, coconut meat, like really looking at those healthy plant-based sources of your omega-3s and reducing the omega-6s. So do not use canola oil and vegetable oil and hydrogenated oils and, you know, rancid, unhealthy processed fried oils, or fried foods rather, not good at all. Now, getting in more high fibrous complex carbohydrates. So I've touched on this a little bit because I do not believe that carbohydrates are bad. I don't believe in taking them out totally. What I see coming in my practice is a lot of metabolic damage done to women's bodies by going on keto for too long and totally taking all of their carbohydrates out. I have yet to work with a woman who for a long period of time who has been following keto where we don't see big issues happen. I use it as a therapeutic approach. I use it oftentimes with women who have severe insulin resistance. If we have morbid obesity, if we it has to be as a case-by-case situation when I would apply that principle, but I'm not using it forever and always, okay? I find the best types of carbohydrates, and it does vary from person to person, are things that are going to be easy tolerated on your body. So for instance, if you consume a lot of beans and lentils and legumes, but you're constantly gassy and bloated, then that could be a healthy food by itself as we look at it, but once you ingest it in your body, not great for you. Same thing with oats and quinoa. I do great with oats. I do not do good with quinoa. I do wonderful with buckwheat. I do not do good with a lot of lentils. I do okay with some beans, not with others. If I eat lots of breads, you might as well just like give me a soother, swaddle me up like a baby and put me to bed. I'm out. Starchy vegetables I find to be the better route to go. So sweet potatoes, parsnips, beets, carrots, different squashes, pumpkin. Root vegetables are fantastic because they are satiating. You can flavor them up with different herbs and spices, whether it's fresh or dried herbs. You know, roasting them, I find brings out the most flavor in them, and I make up huge trays of them every week and just keep them in Corningware dishes in the fridge. And again, ladies, because of the nutrients in them, because of the fiber, this is going to decrease your inflammation. This is going to get you pooping. This is going to support your blood sugar. It's really going to help your cravings as well too. And when we hear like eating healthy for our hormones, this doesn't mean you're living off of raw salads. That is boring, and it is for most people going to cause a lot of digestive issues, because if your gut's having problems, you probably won't be able to break down a lot of the raw food. You're probably going to have more gas and bloating, or it's going to go right through you. So this actually takes me into supplements, which is where we're about to finish off. Now, again, I don't know you listening, so please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Please do not go by every single thing I'm talking about. Please book yourself in a consultation with either someone on my team by visiting jenpike.com. You'll see about us. We have an on-team ND. We have another holistic nutritionist that is joining us in a couple weeks, and then myself. So if you really are serious about this, first of all, you would join the Hormone Project. That is where you go from here to get these hormones in balance. We include the Dutch test for you, all of that. And your protocol is specific to what's going on in your body. If you're not ready to do the Hormone Project, but you want to have a consultation, if you're like, my mind was just blown, I don't know where to begin, book in a consult. Book in with our naturopath, Dr. Laura Anderson. Get the complete blood work done. Get the Dutch paneling done. Understand where your starting is right now so that we can help you build a tribe and we can educate you. That is what we do as a company and as a team. We don't talk to you. We don't tell you. We communicate with you, and we meet you where you are right now, and we help to build on your knowledge base moving forward so that you eventually don't need us. That's our goal. That's how I measure success in my business, is when does a woman no longer need me? That's when I know I have done a really, really good job. So my foundationals, and I write and talk about this all the time. I have 5 foundationals, but when I'm talking about things like hormone balance, I have 2 additional that go into this. So it's my 5+2. So the first is a whole food complex. For our family, it's Juice Plus because it's non-organic fruits and veggies, more than 35 of them every single day. Like everything we've just talked about, the underlying tone was get more vegetables in. Even doing this for a living, it is very hard for me to physically chew and consume when I need in a day. And so it sits right here. You can't see this in the podcast, but I have a bowl of them like right here with me. I have my sulforaphane for my estrogen support. I have my omegas. I have my liver drops. I have my probiotics, and I have my Juice Plus. I have different stations in my house with the supplements that we need at different times of the day so that we remember, right? Like you've got to create association and have it around you so you don't forget. The next one up is magnesium, which goes next to the bed. Vitamin D, omega-3s, probiotics. Now for women, I recommend probiotics that are created for a woman's body. Genuine Health has a fantastic women's daily that has 15 different strains. So it's a multi-strain, which is what you're looking for. And it is strains that help to support the actual biome, the microbiome and ecosystem in the vaginal area. So we have a microbiome that's in our gut, which we all know about. We have a microbiome that's on our skin. We have a microbiome in our vaginal area, and it requires a different type of balance. So it is a shelf-stable one, which works great because you don't have to keep it into the fridge. And so they have a women's daily. And then for those women I work with who have chronic urinary tract infections or history of them and have been put on tons of antibiotics, or they get a lot of bacterial vaginosis and yeast, I will use these probiotics. I'll also use something from Genestra called Candigen. And it comes with an applicator that looks like a tampon applicator, and then it has a soft ovule, and it is concentrated probiotic that you insert vaginally to go in and healthfully inoculate the area. So we take things orthomolecularly through the mouth to get into the system. We eat a varied diet, and then we supplement. And in this area, there's things that we can put into our bodies vaginally: vitamin E capsules, evening primrose oil, different things for different things going on. So I would use the evening primrose oil and the vitamin E if there was a lot of vaginal dryness, painful intercourse. Insert the capsules just inside the vaginal opening before you go to bed. Wear a panty liner because it will break down from the acidity in the vagina, and then you'll have some discharge from it. You know, pee as you would in the morning, you're going to pass it out, and this is going to help to really take care of those areas of your body. A B complex, critical. My favorite one is AOR, or Designs for Health. Those two are fantastic. And vitamin C. Our adrenals need that vitamin C. This is going to help with your stress. This is going to help just, in balance overall. And as cortisol is up, progesterone drops down. So to help to negate high cortisol, get in, I would say, this one safely, without knowing you, about 2,000 vitamin C every single day. I like chewables. My next level, which would be above this, is giving liver support, which is St. Francis Liver Hepato DR. You can follow the directions on the bottle. Digestive enzymes to decrease your bloating, your gas, your upset, St. Francis Canadian bitters. Adaptogens like rhodiola, maca, ashwagandha that can be added into elixirs that I share all the time on Instagram. For sleep and for stress, I really like Tulsi, so holy basil, which you do in a tincture or a tea. And then at night for sleep, I love a combination of some L-theanine with melatonin and some 5-HTP. My favorite brand for this is Natural Factors, and it's a chewable lozenge called Tranquil Sleep. So again, we'll have show notes. This is all recorded. This is where you do the pause and rewind and listen and write. But you only go and purchase these things once you understand everything I've taught you in class 1 and what you just heard today. So that would be kind of next level up. And then from there, these are all therapeutic. There's going to be different combinations of things that I would use. I will work with other colleagues and compounding pharmacies if they need anything more specific. If it's bioidenticals, it's out of my scope of practice, but I have colleagues who do this. So again, you want to make sure whoever you're working with is looking outside the parameter of just their business and their profitability. You want somebody who is, yes, running a successful business when they're working with you, but is looking at you, the individual, and listening to the full picture, and is then going to be a connector of getting you associated with other practitioners, other specialists in different areas, because none of us know it all. None of us are able to help you with every single thing. But if you work with the right people, we know the best people who could be that next level and that next connection. And then I would say the final thing is looking at your lifestyle as a whole. And this is truly the most important element of it all. You can take every supplement that I just talked about and still feel like garbage if you don't understand the totality your lifestyle is taking on your body, ladies. Are you stressed? Are you unhappy? Are you stifling your own joy? Are you ignoring what you really want to do? Do you keep telling yourself you don't know? Do you keep telling yourself that you don't have a choice, that this is just the way it is? And what we tend to do, this is our self-limiting belief. What we tend to do is when we hear somebody say things like, are you doing what you want to do? Is we go to the things that we know we can't change right now, right? Like little kids that are waking up in the middle of the night. Okay, you can't change that right now. You're right. The stress that your spouse feels from their job. No, you can't change that. The illness that your parents are going through. No, you can't change that right now. Your commute. Well, you probably could change that. Is that a conversation you can have about working from home even one day a week? Could you take the train instead of driving so that you could read, or you could close your eyes for a bit more rest, or do whatever for that period of time? Step back from it for a moment. Don't look at or think about what is not available or what you cannot change. And if you're that person where you always go to the negative, like you just like you feel it and you hear it before it's even left your lips, I'm going to encourage you to be quiet and just stop and just ask yourself, is what I'm about to say true? Is it true that there's actually nothing I could change right now to feel better? Is it true that out of all of the things that I have learned in these past 2 classes and these past 2 podcast episodes, that there is not one single thing that I could pull from this and apply to my life? It's not true. There are many things, simple, inexpensive, if not free things that we can start to do. There are also many things that we can stop doing. So maybe your takeaway from today is not what you need to start to do. Maybe it's what you need to stop doing. I had to stop talking for a moment to take a sip of water. All right, that's where I'm going to end it. So here's what I'm going to leave you with in terms of your next steps. I think I talked enough in terms of, if you want, reach out to our team, jenpike.com, book a consultation in with Dr. Laura. Our new consulting RHN, Ashley, will be starting with us mid-June, and she is fantastic. Women's health and hormone focus, also huge connection to like Mother Earth medicine, botanicals, herbs. I'm so excited to be bringing her onto the team. I'm going to be obviously staying on, but I am going to focus my energy and time on the hormone project and really facilitating what is becoming known as an educational program for women. My company and business, Simplicity Project Inc., is about filling in the gaps of what is not available or accessible to us that we all deserve and need to know. And I say to you every week, I want you to share this. Post it on your page. Send it to your girlfriend. You can share this with whomever you want. It makes 0 sense to create this type of content and keep it close. It makes 0 sense for you to listen to this and be nodding your head the whole way through and feel inspired and be like, oh my gosh, how have I never known this? And then not share it with another woman in your life. Start to talk more. Crank up the volume on your own microphone and be part of the collective change for women's health. The only way that we are going to be able to do this is if more of you choose to assert yourself, to stand up taller, and to speak louder from a place of love, from a place of deserving to know this information, and from a place of truly wanting to pay it forward and to help others. All right. Yes, I see a question on the sidebar. Flax flour. So ground flax is okay, not flax flour, but ground flax is okay. And yes, the next round of the Hormone Project, ladies, it starts June 17th. It is an application process this time. We are almost 50% full. I am going through these applications one by one, reading them. Then I send them over to my team and say, yes, please send this woman more information. Bobby Sue, I am still going through applications right now. So you can expect to hear from my team if you've already applied by at the very latest Thursday this week. And we'll be giving updates on where we're at registration-wise and going from there. Thank you all so much for joining me live today. If you're listening to the recording, I hope this was a great one for all of you. And I will see you all in our next masterclass. When I post that one, I will let you know. And if you're listening to the podcast, I'll catch you back here next week for a brand new episode. Ladies, as always, wishing you more simplicity and more ease in all that you do. Have a fantastic rest of your day.